Attaboy. Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. We're heard around the world on America Matters, www.americamatters.us, and we broadcast through most of Nevada and a little bit of California too.
Yeah, quite a range.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're here today to celebrate that the D.C. Court of Appeals, in a 2-1 decision, has vindicated General Flynn, or at least overturned the kabuki theater going on with Judge Sullivan appointing his own prosecutor to try and retry Flynn.
So embarrassing.
I know.
It just is something that we would never expect to see, except that it was Flynn.
Right.
They were after Flynn.
Right.
Because Flynn, they knew, and I don't know whether Flynn knew more than he's let on. He may have known the coup was in full swing, but we won't know that, I don't think, just yet. But they knew that once he was there, that would be uncovered.
Right.
The coup d'etat would be uncovered. And so they couldn't have that. So Flynn had to go down. That's what this was all about.
Right. And, you know, all of this with Bolton and all of that, one has to wonder if Flynn had not been taken down, what the result would have been. I mean, he could have possibly fallen out with Trump. We don't know that. But when Trump then hired a bunch of losers, starting with H.R. McMaster's, you know, a virulent NeoCon, and who did not share Flynn's views on the world, and then eventually winding up with Bolton.
I think some of the people that you are referring to, including McMaster's, were the creme de la creme of the globalists.
Right.
That's how bad his choices were. And he does have limited choices. I mean,
Right.
They do show him lists, just as we've discovered with the Federalist Society on Supreme Court potential nominees. So this is the environment that he's in. And we're lucky to have experienced as many of the successes as he's been able to pull off in the course of 3.5 years, given these circumstances and these limitations of those he can pull from.
Yeah. You know, of course, other names have been put to him by people like Rand Paul.
Oh, yeah.
And he hasn't chosen any of those either.
Now, let's talk about that for a minute. Why would that not be the case? Why would he be sort of precluded from selecting some of these suggestions?
Well, I will say that the neocons have a grip on him, or
more than just the neocon label, but globalists, members of the Council on Foreign Relations. John Bolton was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Right.
McMaster's was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. So these are people who are in line. They've sort of waited their turn until this kind of an opportunity presents itself. And as Hannity has said, Bolton, you know, he was a recess appointment. And it was at Hannity's suggestion, and he kind of covers his tracks these days by, you know, wipes his hands of any relationship with Bolton. But the reality is that he'd put Bolton in Trump's ear. Hannity had actually suggested it.
You know, most people would point to Uncle Sheldon for that.
Yeah, well, there could be any number of sources. But, you know, when Hannity has a microphone, he's not ashamed to use it.
Right.
And there's a certain arrogance that comes off not too obviously, but it's still there. You know, he's come a long way from, you know, he's proud of talking about his law enforcement parents, and he was a guy in the kitchen and behind the bar before he became a big shot broadcaster. So he's probably, as you would expect, somewhat normally excited about where he's come from.
Yeah.
And he likes to talk about, his now ensconced relationship with the president.
Yeah, and Hannity is also a self-described devout Catholic who's getting divorced and who has been a warmonger for every Republican war.
Oh, absolutely. But so many of the broadcasters have come around since Trump presented himself. And Laura Ingraham is another. I mean, I would have never listened to her. I remember one morning I caught her program from Columbia Falls, Montana into Kalispell, and I couldn't believe that was the same person I've listened to all these years. And then it dawned on me, oh yeah, Donald Trump's running for president. So then I knew exactly why. They'd all come around, and I can listen to these people again because they were not, their careers were not tied to globalism.
Yeah.
That's what the difference was.
Yeah. Tucker Carlson is the most authentic of them, I think.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think he's changed much, except when he got married, he abandoned his libertarian social philosophy. He says he was a long-haired libertarian, but then his wife is apparently a very devout Christian, and that's why he's become such a social conservative.
Well, and he's an Episcopalian, I think. Isn't he?
But that's not usually considered.
Quite secular.
Quite secular, quite moderate. And Tucker is very traditional in his social conservatism, which means he doesn't really understand, and I get frustrated with him about that. But other than that,
But I think you'd have to say he's come a long way.
Okay.
Yeah, and I say that about just about all of them, and the reason is Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, I'm saying that Tucker was actually probably closest to what he now espouses, and he didn't have to go that far.
That's right. And didn't you yourself see him a few years ago at a Libertarian convention? Or what
it was Ron Paul's secondary convention in Minneapolis. Apart from the official Republican convention, he held his own convention because he knew he was going to get shafted there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. And I was there, and in fact, I had a press pass. I was there with at Manor Teat with the press corps, and but the thing is that he did walk out in this when Jesse Ventura spoke and gave his 9/11 conspiracy theory. Tucker walked
did.
out. Yeah,
he probably wanted to be visibly seen as not adhering to everything he was listening to. Probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but he was generally with the Ron Paul campaign. So General Flynn looks like he's being finally vindicated.
Unless there's one caveat. We'll talk about it after the break.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dennis Patterson. I'm the founder and owner of Nevada Advanced Pain Specialists. At Nevada Advanced Pain Specialists, we take a comprehensive approach to treating patients with chronic pain in the greater...
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967. Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brendan Traynor, and my co-host is Leland Faegre. And you were going to top off the Flynn discussion there, Lee?
Yeah. First of all, I want to welcome Edna Tokasi, who's joined our Talking Truth to Power Facebook page this morning. And she is in Queensland, Australia. We're heard in Queensland, Australia.
Yes, we are.
Oh, very good. So welcome to her. Yeah, the only caveat to the story is, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won't let go, because for obvious reasons that we talked about already, Flynn has a lot to say about the coup d'etat. And there is a possibility, if they want to pursue this, they don't want to let go of the decision, that it could be appealed or another judge on the D.C. Circuit can call for a vote on whether the case should be reheard, in which case the decision will be vacated and a wider panel of judges will then be allowed to hear
Banc.
Yeah.
Of appeal en banc, it's
Yeah.
called, yeah.
So, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I really won't be surprised if they don't want to let this go.
Right,
There's too much at stake.
right. And, by the time that appeal is heard, then we're getting that much closer to the election and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
so-
what they're trying to do, is stretch it out past the election. They think they can just robot Biden into office and they'll be free.
Yep. Well, the basement strategy is at work again.
Definitely.
All right, so I have started off my notes today with a quote, he who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past.
Oh, you're not going to invoke George Orwell,
I am
are
going to
you?
invoke George Orwell this early in the morning. But so are we in the early stages, like Tucker Carlson was saying last night, are we in the early stages of a real revolution, or is this going to burn out like the other riots in the past have burned out?
Well, I'm already on record as saying that we are in a civil war and that it's the threshold, we're on the threshold of a new dark age. And I think that these barbarians that we've been seeing in the streets are the modern equivalent of the Visigoths and the Huns and the marauding barbarian tribes of the 3rd century. I don't think it's any different.
Well, I don't know about the Visigoths.
They
but,
sacked Rome.
yeah, but I'm talking more about the communes of 1848. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm
about.
thinking it's more severe than that.
The Paris communes led to the Russian Revolution, and they also led to the Federal Reserve, and the false interpretation of the 16th Amendment that it was a brand new type of unapportioned direct tax. All of these things sprang from the communes of 1848, the original communist revolutions. And these people, they were called the 48ers, and they went into, respectable positions after that, but they kept to their, communist ideology. And it bore fruit in many ways in the 20th century and all the destruction that it brought with it. But so if that's, we have known that the groundwork has been laid in the universities.
For several generations.
And even down to K to 12,
Yeah.
in high school. So the groundwork has been laid for a very much of an ideological shift.
There's a reason why you and I didn't finish college.
Exactly. I know.
We would have had to have lied our way through it. And
Right.
It's
Right.
just
I mean,
wasn't-
I was too busy sitting in the administration
Yeah.
to finish my courses, But
At least you were given the opportunity.
and then I was discouraged because of the, I could see the polarity right there that, that if you wanted to be a reformist and to stop what was going on, you almost had to sign on to the whole leftist agenda.
You did. That was the only way you could finish the courses and
Right.
be accredited and
Right.
do what you
Yeah.
wanted to do.
Right.
I couldn't do it.
Right.
I couldn't compromise it. I knew more than the teacher who was teaching me.
Right.
And that's trouble.
Yeah. And, the Frankfurt School has been in there. So I did a little research on Black Lives Matter. Now, I'm not talking about everybody that's protesting police brutality or
Talking
anything
about
like
her?
that. No, I'm talking about the organization itself, which is reportedly getting at least $150 million in donations recently.
Yep.
So,
And it's pretty much benefited from white millennial women.
exactly.
What are the odds?
The
We connect the dot there, huh?
Right. Well, let me tell you something. There's it's the Black Lives Matter organization is a Marxist extreme feminist. When I say extreme feminist, I'm talking about the the Dawkins, the people from the early '90s that Rush called feminazis. Only they're Marxists, and They do have a Frankfurt School view of the world. They want to destroy the nuclear family. They were founded by women called Patrice Kahn-Kullers, Opal Tometi, and Alicia Garza.
And she's been making the rounds. That Patrice woman has been everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
The two of them are self-proclaimed neo-Marxist community organizers. They call themselves trained Marxists in the tradition of Saul Alinsky. All three are radical feminists, which I take to be, cisgender male haters, especially white male haters.
I think that's fair.
And two of them are lesbians. And this is interesting to me because I am not anti-lesbian. As a libertarian, and also as a family person, I have a sister who's a lesbian, and she's retired now, but back in the day, she and her wife, she's the butch in the party, they had one of the first test tube babies, and he turned out just fine. I mean, he is a Democrat in New York, and he's a public school teacher.
I thought you said he turned out fine.
Yeah, but he did. He's a public school teacher, but he's an above-average teacher.
I rest my case.
He's above average. He volunteers to go into the ghetto and teach the most disadvantaged kids. And, maybe he's a professional do-gooder, but he is a nice guy. And so I know that gay people should have equal rights, and that I even believe that gays should be allowed to adopt children because I've seen what it has occurred in my family, and they came out just fine. He's married with at least one child now that I can remember. So, and I also remember, I'm a scholar of libertarian thinking, and Murray Rothbard, who was professor emeritus at UNLV until his death in the 90s, he wrote books and articles about the original progressives, and he was one of the first to point out that many of the women leaders of the early progressives that were establishing halfway houses for immigrants and that sort of thing, they were also lesbians, and that's an interesting distinction there. It bears some
goes
more
against the grain, kind of.
Yeah, it does. Were they so? Did they feel so alienated, or were they overly puritanical because of the oppression that they felt, that they identify with this puritanism, this anti-male? Because I'm a Camille Paglia, sex-friendly feminist myself.
I always knew that about
Well,
you.
Camille went to the same school I did. She was only a year ahead of me. Yeah. And she's a lesbian. She says bisexual, but she's been mainly lesbian. And she's the one that has been carrying on the fight against these feminazis, since the 90s. And it's interesting to me how this all intersects, and it's going to require some more thinking and so on. But what I'm trying to say here, in my roundabout way of trying to pull strings together,
Draw things together.
yeah, into a coherent whole, is that this does not. When you have radical lesbian revolutionaries, things don't normally go very well for ordinary people, and especially for white males, which is the main target of this whole movement.
Right. Right.
Unless you're a soy boy.
Well, yeah, like Ben Carson.
like the most of the males that identify with them can be called soy boys. For example, we see in the it's a little late, but we see it in Seattle the Soviet Union commune, that they had there.
Falling apart already.
Yeah, they couldn't figure out what would happen if there was violence there, but they sure knew how to grow a cute organic farm, right?
Apparently, yeah, that's what we hear. I didn't see that, but
There was the same thing in the 60s. There was a fascination with food and against agribusiness and farming. I remember I did the same thing, only when I was on one of these communal farms, I spent most of my time with my girlfriend and riding my Ducati.
Well, didn't that have something to do with the public schools?
Yeah, because
I remember they were into that
I
too.
went from a very Catholic school background to a very Jewish liberal arts school, so
Oh, okay.
that was culture shock for me.
Yeah, I bet that was.
But
But the public schools are clearly, and by the way, the narrative now from our side, in reaction to what we've seen over the past month or so, is that public schools are the source of the problem.
yes.
And there's common sort of conversation about that recognition, and I'm heartened by that.
Yes, because Trump is calling for school choice all the time.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. Let me tell you about my favorite non-profit public charity, Wainema Wild Horse Sanctuary, located on the Forsyth Ranch in Hallelujah Junction area. And please go to www.wainemaranch.com. That's WYNEMA ranch.com.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back, Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Trainer, and along with Leland Faegre, we were discussing the current turmoil in the streets and how it relates to the official Black Lives Matter movement, and the possibility that it will be more. Now, another disturbing thing is that the Boogaloo Boys, which are a little-known group of militia, and from what I can understand, they got their name from Electric Boogaloo, the movie, Breakdance Electric Boogaloo. I don't know if I saw that movie myself.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, and some of them are apparently righteous. They're self-amendment defenders, and they say they don't like the police because they're tired of no-knock raids and getting killed in their beds in the middle of the night. But a few of them apparently are extremists, and a couple have been arrested in California for laying an ambush for a federal officer and murdering him outside a federal building.
Was that in Oakland? That one in Oakland.
Oakland, yeah.
And there's apparently a link to the event in Santa Cruz, or Ben Lomond, which is outside of Santa Cruz.
Okay.
Remember that?
Right.
They were armed to the teeth, and they showed up, and then somebody apparently noticed a truckload of weapons, and that was the end of that story. But not before it killed a Santa Cruz officer.
Right.
They think there's some link to both of those events.
Okay. So, again, are we getting the beginnings of a 1930s-style scenario where, the brown shirts and the red shirts would do gang warfare on the streets of in Germany that foretold the Nazi takeover in the 30s?
I think in the context of history, it's more like a Dark Age event. I think it's more like the 3rd century than the last one. I think it's much more severe.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see.
You can't fix that kind of stupid. Mm-hmm. It has to run its course, and it's going to get ugly.
Yeah. Well, will it topple governments
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do we have a call? All right. I think we have our Mike on the line.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can, Mike. How are you today?
I'm alive.
Oh, well, that's a good start. Yeah.
Leland.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you.
Yes.
And I want you to give me a call at your leisure if I can't finish anything out. I think they have my phone number there. I tend to agree with you that we're headed for a dark age, but let me give you some information. Are you familiar with the book Dark Star Rising?
No, I'm not.
Gary Lachman, Lachman.
Sounds like something I should have, but...
Yes, you should read it. He wrote it, I think, at the beginning when Trump came in.
Oh, okay.
It's very subtle. Lachman writes a lot on esoteric stuff and other things. He was a former musician for Blondie. It's very subtle. He thinks Trump is the dark star rising, but you have to get through the opening pages.
Okay.
Now, let me give you some esoteric material. I know, I forgot what's his name there. I'm getting
Brendan? The co-host, Brendan?
Yeah, Brendan. Yeah. We are headed for a dark age here, but Russia is positioning itself as a future refuge and home for the white race.
I think that makes sense, actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you Mike, you and I have agreed with that, and that's one reason.
Oh, yeah, we agree on Russia. Everything
that's
else.
one reason why they hate Russia. That's...
Yes.
Uh-huh.
This might be the only thing we agree on, because I think you're totally screwed up on everything else.
Who are you talking about, Brendan?
Yes. I think you're wrong on everything else, and I disagree with you on everything else, and including UFOs. But we'll leave that alone. Yeah, we tend to agree on Russia for some bizarre reason, and this book, both of you, doesn't say that, but it's subtle, and he goes into some theorists in Russia and how they view America. It's very short, very easy to read, and very subtle. And we're done here.
Yeah.
If there's no white resistance, we're done.
Yeah, I think
and
that's exactly right.
And what's going on in South Africa.
We're losing that as well. Yeah.
But they're outnumbered, the whites, 5 to 6 to 1. We're still 69% of the thing here. Mm-hmm. But what's going to happen here? And also we're going to go to Argentina, where a lot of the elite have put up rancheros going back 30 years. I'm sure, Brendan, both of you guys are intelligent. I'm sure you know this. People like Soros and Ted Turner. When the you-know-what hits the fan, which it is now, they've been prepared for this. I mean, Bush has landed in Paraguay. They're going to get out. But what I think is going to happen, I know, it's running out of time. 30 years from now, LA Unified is now over 70% Hispanic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In 2 years, Texas, the Hispanics will be a plurality.
Mm-hmm.
30 years from now, they will be running LA.
Yep.
They will be running Texas. They hate the blacks. You think they're going to put up with a monkey riot?
Right, exactly. That's why I say you can't put this back in the bottle. It's already out, and it's going to get ugly from here. And going back to Putin, I mean, he talks. I think he has an annual conference. I forget where this is, but he talks to journalists from all over the world, and he basically makes the very same claim that you just did. That we'll welcome you here. He doesn't say it.
Right.
But it's implied by the conversation. It's a very engaging. I think he does it for about 2 hours. Right. He engages journalists for at least that length of time. It is something else, and he comes after the neocons big time.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It's really something to see.
He has a 5-page article in the National Interest website. I don't know if you're familiar with that, in which he talks about how Russia has been shunned by historians, its role in defeating the Nazis in World War II. Right. And he is inviting all historians to open up their archives and go back over that period. But he's also talking about he wants a summit between the original founders of the UN, that is the United States, Britain, France, Russia, and China. He wants a summit to discuss the New World Order, basically the end of the New World Order.
He's not shy about discussing this subject, which is what I'm intrigued by. And he goes at great lengths to explain the unipolar world that emerged after the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, and also, as Western Europe collapses under the Muslim and black invasion, civilization of necessity will move to the Eastern Slavs. And that's why they want to keep these other people out. And what they have to do is heal the Catholic Orthodox rift, if they can. But it's going to move there as one area goes down. See, I see everything in racial terms, but you do to an extent, Leland. So, well, okay, basically this stuff, and that's what I think is going to happen. Western civilization will continue in China, where you see a lot of classical music, but also, Russia fears China. They fear the Orientals
yes, they
themselves.
do. Mm-hmm. It's not widely discussed, but that is absolutely correct. And we appreciate your call today, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, and we have to talk about Elohim someday.
Oh, you bet. you give me a call, and I'll be. All right, Brendan.
Take care.
Okay, guys. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Mike. So that was an interesting discussion, and I think he's right on top of it. Of course, he's agreeing with me on most of these things, but...
well, I don't think you and I really disagree.
No, I don't either. I would tend to say that
he doesn't like the fact that I am social liberal. He's much more social conservative than I am. And but even though I'm a social liberal, like I said, I don't like crazy Marxist neo-Nazi gays and lesbians. You know?
Right.
And that's the real problem, not the sexual orientation itself, but the ideology behind this revolt against Western values.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
there's a lot to it.
Yeah,
a lot of parts to this, but ultimately, what it comes down to is we failed to educate properly several generations of our own.
Right.
And that's how we got here.
Right.
And what bothers me mostly about that is that we still don't know.
Yeah.
Half the country still doesn't understand that dynamic.
No.
It's not part of the conversation. Media is at fault for not making it part of the conversation, because we do it here every single week on Talking Truth to Power. So there's no excuse not to understand that by listening to us.
And the failure to understand any distinction between white nationalism, white supremacy, or just fighting for...
or proper nationalism.
Yeah, for proper nationalism, exactly.
Which they like to confuse.
Right.
Because it's in their interest to describe it in a way that benefits their narrative.
All right. A multi-ethnic society as opposed to a multicultural society. Yeah, that's another one. Right?
Good.
Yeah, they refuse to make these distinctions. And, Donald is going to have to shore up all his bases. He's going to have to go... He's going to have to actually go do something for the white nationalists because they are part of his base.
They happen to be white.
Yeah, they happen to be white.
But nationalists.
Yeah, but...
Who happen to be white.
Right. Anti-nationalism is
because we fall right into their hands when we call them white nationalists.
Would you like more energy? A photon sound beam may be the solution you need. A photon sound beam uses electrical energy to ionize gases that generate ozone and light.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Trainer, and my co-host is Leland Faegre, and it's time for one of our regular segments, Jews in the News.
Okay, I've called security, so we're
okay.
All right.
And, of course, we have the official ADL disclaimer that we recognize that Israel is always our greatest ally and the only democracy in the Middle East, and they don't throw gay people off of buildings. Mm-hmm. And we acknowledge that everywhere and any time we see Jews misbehaving, ultimately it's our fault. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So AIPAC has sent a letter to its minions in Congress to let them know it's okay to debate the settler movement, that is the Jewish movement to steal more land and kill more people on the West Bank, and the likely annexation of large parts of the Jordan Valley, which Bibi has been saying he's going to do in just a few weeks, sometimes in July. Well, they are allowing our Congresspeople to debate it up to a limit.
I saw that.
Yeah, they don't specify what the limit is, but it likely refers to any threat of reduction in aid to Israel, and that, of course, is off the table.
How much is that? Like $5 billion a year, isn't it?
Well, that's the part of the problem. It's going up as Americans are still waiting on bread lines for their daily sustenance, and so many people are unemployed. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee has been meeting in secret sessions to approve the wish list that we talked about a few weeks ago, which would extend the aid to Israel to up to $38 billion a year.
Wow. Wow. Wow, I thought I was hoping they'd trim it back a bit.
No, never. You know, that's the Israeli thing. You never retreat, you always advance. Never give up an inch. So President Kirchner is trying to talk Bibi out of it and to wait until after the election before he does the annexation. But 1,000 EU lawmakers have signed a statement opposing the annexation. But is all this confusion, will they or won't they, will it turn out to be just a smokescreen to keep everybody off balance until the deed is suddenly done and we're confronted with the facts on the ground? It happens time after time with Israel and the Palestinians.
So it's formulaic is what you're saying.
Yes, we always get this. It's managed news. It's what it is. And also, the Epstein connection and the Alan Dershowitz connection have been in the news. And we can start off with wondering, where in the world is Ghislaine Maxwell?
I was going to say, where in the hell is Dershowitz? He's kept a low profile lately.
Well, he's been in the news because he's got a court case trying to exonerate charges that he benefited from sex acts while he was as Epstein's lawyer. And Maxwell is apparently now she's in a luxury apartment in Paris, just a few minutes away from Epstein's former Paris digs. But somehow the FBI can't seem to find her. So, like I said, Dershowitz is in court, and during the accusations in the documents in his case, documents from Virginia Giuffre's case have been filed, and more names have been named as having been accused by Ms. Giuffre and others of sexual improprieties, including Ehud Barak, the former prime minister, who has been photographed trying to hide his face going into Epstein's apartment in New York several times.
He claims to have been there between, 20 and 100 times, something like that?
Yeah.
He's not sure which it is.
Yeah. Former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson's name keeps popping up. Victoria's Secret owner Leslie Wexner, who handed over power of attorney over his fortune to Epstein. And there's a Netflix video, a new Netflix show about Epstein, but it doesn't mention anything about the Mossad connection.
Well, that's the Obama network.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Netflix is Obama's network. That's right.
So I'm sure they're not going to go too far into depth of that story.
And then when Attorney General Barr removed the federal prosecutor from the Southern District of New York, it has been mentioned in passing that he was investigating Epstein. And can we trust Barr? You know, I know Barr does some good things, but I don't trust him with this because it was his father that was head of the private prep school that first hired Epstein.
Yeah, I remember
to
that
teach
connection.
young girls.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But you can't necessarily blame him for that.
Right.
But that connection has been discussed, yeah.
And also, if you go back to the original, the books that were written in the 90s about Mena, Arkansas, and the cocaine smuggling that involved former President George W.H. Bush and Bill Clinton.
Yeah, the airport there.
Yeah.
Southern Arkansas, I think.
Yeah, Barr is mentioned in there as being a bag man for President Bush. He was Attorney General. and trying to cover up that whole cocaine network there. So, he's an establishment man. He's not going to reveal too many secrets, in my opinion, about what's going on.
Well, you may be right on that. I'm looking at it from, this is a new day, a new era. He raised his hand and said, I want to be Attorney General. And he has been true to his word here. He's going after the deep state. And so I can't fault him for that.
Yeah, well, at least so far as hopefully what is going to happen with the attorney Bull Durham's investigation. Hopefully he'll be true to that. But he immediately came out and said that Epstein wasn't murdered.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So without any real completion of the...
without an investigation.
Yeah, without the investigation. Right. So as far as actually bringing the Mossad and what is happening, because you got to think that somewhere in Israel there's a cache of videos that show a lot of Gentile white bare bums going up and down on high school cheerleaders named Bambi at Pedophile Island.
In Israel?
In Israel.
Oh, okay.
These videotapes are there. And that's what the Mossad does. It first it blackmails you. Then when it has you blackmailed, this is the mega group tactic, according to Whitney Webb and others. And then once they have you in a blackmail situation, they own you and they reward you. They give you power. They give you money. They give you whatever they want as long as they have that ultimate compromat, as Adam Schiff would say, on you. So we'll see how this plays out. But Prince Andrew is on the hot seat a little bit. But what about the Clintons? We have evidence from maintenance workers on the island that Bill Clinton was there more than he claims.
A couple of dozen times.
Yeah. And it's also kind of amusing that Dershowitz's exculpatory evidence as to why he was not involved with any of these sexual escapades is that he brought his wife and his young daughter to Pedophile Island. Now, isn't that a typical New York...
Was that cover?
Lawyers.
Was that for his own cover?
Yeah, I mean, your defense is that you brought your young daughter to the Pedophile Island.
Right.
That is... That's almost like the Menendez brothers throwing themselves on the mercy of the court because they were orphans.
I forgot about those guys.
So, and then because of the riots, some progressives have pulled upsets, apparently. We must say that all the votes are not in, and there are a lot of mail-in ballots in these states that haven't been counted yet. But the biggest...
Yeah, why is that? I heard that the number was only about 10% count this morning. How could that be? What are we going backwards in that processing as well? I mean, how does that happen?
It's part of the new dark ages, I guess.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, Elliot Engel has apparently lost to Jamal Bowman, a black man, who is now holding a 60-40 lead. And that is the district in New York that's part of the Bronx, so it's close to AOC's district. And AOC easily defeated her challengers. And Engels was endorsed by Hillary Clinton at the last minute, and also by the Black Caucus.
Oh, interesting.
Even though he's running against the black
Isn't that interesting?
Candidate, yeah.
But it's not going to work for them.
Now,
it doesn't look like.
No. Wikipedia will only say that Engels' grandparents are Jewish, but Engels has been a stalwart supporter of Israel. He's currently chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And I can recall him complaining out, even before a meeting started, when people were filing into the room, he was on a hot mic, complaining about how Russia was winning the war in Syria and so on, and how shocked he was and disappointed he was at the news and all this. So good riddance to Elliot Engels if he's really going to be out.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
He deserved that a long time ago.
Now, what will Jamal Bowman do? He gave a very intense speech, accepting, hopefully, the fact that he's nominated, although it's not totally confirmed. But what will he do when he's being asked to sign the Israeli loyalty pledge that Representative Omar objected to. We're gonna see.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. So.
Well, just a parting shot here. I see where the National Guard is going to be asked to protect monuments in the District of Columbia.
Yeah, and that's a good
proper
thing.
role for
When they come after Andy Jackson, they come after me.
Yeah, me too.